Our speaker this morning is one of our leaders here at the New York Society for Ethical Culture, who needs no introduction to most of you. Richard Koral has been a leader now for a few years, and he comes to us after a long career as an attorney in New York area. And he is a graduate of NYU and New York Law School, and he has a doctorate in pastoral ministry from the Hebrew Union Seminary here in New York. This morning, Richard is going to address us on the topic of Gratitude Day. And so let us all give him a warm welcome.
So hello, everybody. The question of the day is whether spring has returned or whether they decided not to go ahead with winter, as they threatened last week. Well, we're in November, towards the end of November, and November is National Gratitude Month. Did anybody know that, actually? No? Well, you could be forgiven. It was only in 2015 that someone declared it. Actually, there are about 30 different things that November is the month for. I printed it out, including National Alzheimer's Disease Month, Diabetes Month, National Impotency Month, Novel Writing Month, Raisin Bread Month, Spinach and Squash Month. I mean, it's funny. Gratitude doesn't have much of an industry behind it, you'd think, so I don't know what lobbying effort went into that, but maybe the greeting card industry. But gratitude is sort of the season for Thanksgiving, and it is a unique concept as a trait, as a practice. It does have a lot to be said for it. It's coming into its own as a factor in positive psychology studies, and there's much being said about the nature of gratitude itself, apart from the things that one might be grateful for. Thanksgiving is a recognition of this in its way. It was made a national holiday in 1863, and there was not a lot to be thankful for back then, in the darkest days of the Civil War. Lincoln observed that they needed to invoke a sense of gratitude in the darkest times of the country. He reached back into this mythologized past of the colonial history here to find something about which people could share a common bond, and that it be based on gratitude was to give it a dimension of grace. Well, probably every culture in the temperate zone has a fall harvest festival. Traditional agrarian societies, those who've experienced crop failure and a meager larder for the winter, knew how to be grateful in those years when the harvest was good. So Thanksgiving is really an opportunity to exercise our gratitude. And I'm hopeful that we'll exercise a little bit too. After I talk a little bit about it, theoretically, we'll pass the microphone around and we'll share what people are grateful for here. Things you may have shared over your Thanksgiving dinner, or things that you recall. So what is gratitude? It can be a transitory feeling of indebtedness, a compensation for a favor received, or it can be an enduring attitude, an approach towards living, a deep and abiding recognition, an acknowledgement that goodness does exist, even given the worst that life can offer. People who report feeling grateful and appreciative also report feeling more loving, forgiving, joyful, and enthusiastic. So what I want to explore today is how these feelings can be formed or encouraged through a discipline of gratitude. Scientific studies show that gratitude is not always a result of happiness. It often precedes happiness. It produces happiness. It's been recognized by ancient thinkers as a key factor in happiness, satisfaction with life, so it's not really a new discovery. The Roman philosopher Cicero claimed that gratitude is not only the greatest of virtues, it is the parent of all the others. Epictetus, the great Stoic, also wrote, "He is a wise person who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." So a grateful person will counter blessings. That means a person who recognizes and reiterates the positive things going on in one's life will counteract, override the typical patterns of depressive thinking. This attitude can lead a person to reorganize his or her self-schema and realize, hey, I'm not such a loser after all. You think that? Depressed thinking dotes on the failures. Troubled marriages are characterized by counting more complaints than positives. Some say that couples have to have a positive ratio, 5-to-1, 5 good thoughts to 1 complaint. So by consciously choosing to count your good points and outscoring the negatives, a marriage can be strengthened. Well, many people who've missed a bullet, overcame a serious disease, survived a crash, saw a loved one recover, all have big reasons to be grateful. We tend to reserve our gratitude for the big gifts, the things that we may not have earned. But there is so much that we can be grateful for. It does not need to be reserved for the big stuff. It's the small stuff that makes up our lives. A Templeton-funded survey once found that people generally do not express their gratitude. 94%, they found, believe that those who are grateful lead more fulfilled and richer lives, yet fewer than half the people do express gratitude on any regular basis. So why don't people express it? Einstein said that he reminded himself 1,000 times a day how much he depended on other people and how he was grateful to them. 97% said they would express thanks to a restaurant server, but fewer than half said they expressed gratitude to their spouse. Feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it, someone once wrote. The humanist psychologist Abraham Maslow wrote about the importance of expressing gratitude towards a benefactor. It's important both to the grateful person for whom expressing it fulfills a burden of reciprocity, and the benefactor who may prefer the recognition. Maybe the problem of low rates of gratitude is something you might refer to as habituation. We get used to things, so even the most wonderful things become humdrum, like ho-hum, another morning in Hawaii. Shiny things get dusty, new discoveries get old. You don't remain in a state of perpetual excitement. Good things become normalized. But to be more alive to what we have, we need to reawaken that sense of joy by using gratitude to reevaluate and appreciate the things that we have. Proust once said that discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes. So sometimes we need to look once again with fresh eyes and realize the wonderful richness that is in our lives now and our potential for more growth. So maybe it's less about what you have or where you are and more about how you respond to it. Grateful people have a way of reframing what happens to them. They look for the positive. They make things fit into a positive worldview. As Hamlet said, there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Ben Stein, the comedian, actor, and economist, probably the only funny economist alive, once said, "I cannot tell you anything that in a few minutes will tell you how to be rich, but I can tell you how to feel rich, which is far better, let me tell you firsthand, than being rich. Be grateful. It's the only totally reliable get-rich-quick scheme." Well, we tend to harp on the negative things, the frustrations, the inadequacies, the empty half of the glass. Why is that? It's said that evolution made us this way. Psychologists call this ingrained trait a negativity bias. It's an adaptation that makes us wary and alert to danger. So by focusing on the one bad berry in the bunch, you avoid danger, and you live to eat more berries in the future. But because of that, we can overlook the joy of the berries that were good. Negativity, caution, a long memory for flaws, faults, dangers, serve the cause of survival. But remaining in the zone of self-defense can draw us into a pessimistic framing of life. We neglect to recognize the good that we do enjoy. There is so much to be grateful for, even if we normally take it for granted. If one were simply to look at the basic things life offers, like life itself, the greatest natural achievement of all, the fact that we're even here. We're grateful for having emerged from the mud and the minerals to walk around, and the fact that one planet at least, this very planet, had enough ingredients for the minerals to come together just this way. Today we live in a time and a generation that's the richest, the healthiest, the best fed, and the longest lived in all human history. Yeah, we complain about the challenges of distribution and sustainability, but those are problems of wealth, not problems of privation. And when there is no abundance, can we still be grateful? Must we wait for riches? Well, there's a Buddhist proverb that says, enough is a feast. Enough is enough. We have so much to be grateful for. There's music, chocolate, there are green fields, tall trees, there's art, and for the lucky, there's love. There is every distinct present moment. As Maya Angelou once wrote, this is a wonderful day. I have never seen this day before. So why should people not be grateful? Something else, gratefulness, gratitude is good for you. Are people grateful because they're happy, or are people happy because they're grateful? Embedded in that question is the dilemma whether one has to achieve a status of happiness first in order to earn the right to be grateful. Our society, with its consumerism, its pressures to achieve, makes us strive to gain higher standings, more money, more certifications, more status, and like payback, we agree that we will then show our gratitude once we get there. Get something first, and then you'll owe something. You'll have something to acknowledge, and maybe you'll owe a payback. Like people who often say that through charitable giving, they are giving something back. But experience, as well as scientific research, shows that this intuitive formula is not really accurate. People who are grateful, no matter what they have, and who are grateful for whatever they do have, they are the happiest ones. They are more empathetic, more generous, more secure in their skin. The Journal of Social and Clinical Psychology, surveying the literature, concluded that gratitude may have the highest correlation to mental health and happiness of any personality trait. Grateful people have more positive ways of coping with the difficulties they experience in life. They're more likely to seek support from other people, reinterpret and grow from experiences. They're less likely to avoid a problem, deny there's a problem, and spend more time planning on how to deal with the problem. Less apt to blame themselves or cope through substance abuse. So, how can you be more grateful? Grateful living can be a daily practice, just as mindfulness and compassion are practices. It's strengthened by learning to focus our awareness on the gratefulness of the moment, as said. We can intentionally direct our attention to what is already here, what is working, and what is enough. You can practice gratitude by recognizing and expressly honoring the positive things in your life for which you are grateful. Now, some people who are organized and methodical will actually keep a gratitude journal. Every day they'll write down, say, 3 things for which they are grateful. And that's the practice. So what exactly does this do? This exercise, this practice of gratitude, enables a person to strengthen his or her inventory of good memories. According to Harvard neurologist Alvaro Pasqualeone, practicing gratitude and positive feelings expands the brain's capacity for positive thoughts. This serves to counteract the more normal sensibility, that default sensibility, the one in which you exist in a constant state of defensiveness, conscious of risk, and on perpetual alert. Remember how our evolutionary experience tips us over to highlight the negative. So these instincts are not always helpful in letting us navigate the circumstances we confront in today's world. Our system benefits from intentional adjustment. But you ask, how can one practice gratitude in the face of real tragedy? Isn't this just a fair weather pastime, not suited for the challenges of real life? So where do you go? What do you do when there is nothing to be grateful for and much to resent? In research done by Robert Emmons of UC Davis, whose book entitled Thanks is the basis of much of what I'm saying today, asked people who suffered from neuromuscular diseases and other awful degenerative diseases to perform these gratefulness exercises. In his typical experiment with college students, Emmons would divide his subjects into 3 groups. For one, he had them keep a journal of positive experiences, things and experiences they would be grateful for, 3 a day, and pursue this for a period of, say, 3 months. A second group would make a similar list, but they would list irritations and complaints, 3 a day for the same period of time. And a third group would not make any list. Then all 3 groups would be given a standard mood test. In every instance, without fail, the group that listed the bad things that happened to them declined in happiness measurements. The group that concentrated on recognizing positive things were definitely happier at the end. And those who did not make a list showed no change. These results were remarkably consistent in his research. So how about those suffering from the awful degenerative diseases? People whom you'd expect would have nothing to feel grateful for, rather a great deal to be resentful about. He divided them into 2 groups. Those who would make a list of things for which to be grateful, and a second group who made no such list. He mentions how some of the researchers were hesitant, even embarrassed, to ask his patients to list positive experiences for fear of being disrespectful or cruel. But, amazingly, these patients responded by finding and celebrating their small victories, the gifts of kindness they received, the moments of self-discovery. Tests were made of people who suffered other tragedies, such as people who lost children to sudden infant death syndrome, and results were the same. By taking the time to enhance and refine one's perception of beauty, by appreciating the kindness of others, recognizing the things of value once taken for granted, by focusing on the positive, they too were able to enhance optimism, empathy, patience, and generosity towards others. One builds happiness. Brother Steinl Rast, a Benedictine monk who's considered one of the world's experts on gratitude, because he has an institute on gratitude, said the following: times that challenge us physically, emotionally, and spiritually may make it almost impossible for us to feel grateful. Yet we can decide to live gratefully, courageously open to life in all its fullness. By living the gratefulness we do not feel, to feel the gratefulness that we begin to feel the gratefulness that we live. Conceiving gratefulness as a posture towards life enables us to see how it can be tested and strengthened through adversity. Unless you're practiced in gratefulness, you won't have the skill when adversity arrives. Well, all of us share these tendencies towards fear and defensiveness, but we must know that we do not have to be slaves to our passions or to jump when the same old buttons are pushed. Being ungrateful correlates with anxiety, depression, envy, materialism, and loneliness. We release ourselves from the whirlpool of negativity by purposely reminding ourselves of the good that there is and relieving ourselves of the burden of reactivity and negativity. So what are the implications of all this for our thinking about the larger questions? That gratitude, the feeling, the attitude, its expression is so integral to our happiness, to our sense of self-worth, and our ties to others, shows how deeply embedded this is in the emotional bonds we have between each of us and the circle of community that surrounds us. The complex interchange that exchanges we make in our daily lives reflect the interdependence that our relations are built on. Our modern society fosters a myth of our own personal self-sufficiency. The strong and independent, the separate individual has been held aloft as the fundamental building block of humanity. For many people, it takes a major setback, like illness, disability, or death, to challenge this illusion of self-sufficiency. But in fact, we are deeply dependent on others. We are always in relation with others, and these relationships are vital to our well-being. Our psyche knows that, even if our conscious mind denies it. Happiness is not found inside ourselves alone, and so the practice of gratitude helps us affirm this interconnectedness that supports our lives. In this profound sense, gratitude is not a mere attitude or virtue. It is the very force behind compassion, because life is a network of interdependence and mutuality, out of which our very being is constructed. So now that we know what we're after, can we think of who and what we're grateful for today? Does anyone want to mention something? Michelle?
Sometimes I tell myself that I'm grateful that I have something as simple but essential as clean water, and it actually improves my mood to tell myself that.
I echo that. I'm really into water, and I'm grateful to be able to draw clean water from my New York studio apartment tap. It's amazing. And I've learned to be grateful partly because I realized through news accounts, media, just bring it to our attention all the time, how much that is lacking in other parts of this world. So thanks for water.
We'll give it to Pat.
I'm very grateful for the Democrats winning the House. My first thought about gratefulness is that I found ethical culture 2 years ago, and a wonderful group of people that make me feel less lonely and together.
I also am grateful for ethical culture and all the people in ethical culture. And I'm also grateful for rock and roll. I would like to say that coming back from my sister's house for Thanksgiving dinner, there was this man playing rock and roll in Pennsylvania Station, and I was bopping around and having a good time. This guy was playing all the standard rock and roll favorites, and it was such a blast, you know.
might as well take advantage of this. I'm grateful for my family and my friends because we do keep each other going and we do keep each other happy because we know we can count on each other.
I'm grateful for all the things that people previously mentioned, and more immediately, I'm grateful that I just came back from Phoenix, where I saw my daughter and my niece, and I saw my daughter recovering from major surgery, and saw how she's dealing with chronic illness, and saw the many friends that she has. She has a huge support system and so many people who love her. And I now have gratitude because I don't need to worry about her anymore. I have a whole different view of her life from just spending 4 days in Phoenix and seeing that she really has a wonderful life in spite of what she deals with. And I'm left with such gratitude about that. Thank you.
Yeah, I grew up in agriculture Sunday school many decades ago, and I'm really grateful for the grounding it gave me in life and in reality.
Thank you for that silence. I'm grateful. I'm actually expressing my gratitude not to an individual or not even to a known group of people, but to an institution. And many of us experience that institution quite routinely, but don't think about it too much. It is sometimes taken for granted. I'm talking about the New York Public Library. And its 92 branches, all of which are different from one another, even though architecturally they may seem the same. And each one is a living society of people who love books and often need one another. So don't forget to donate.
Well, okay, thank you, everybody.